Welcome to our podcast offerings, where we invite you to take responsibility for your own well-being, reclaim your energetic sovereignty, embody authentic living, and come home to your true self. We are two sisters, two oceans apart. Maya Lotz from the Energy for Life Wellbeing practice, and Sandy Lotz-Weiner from the Inspired Life Coaching practice. Together we bring you the Ocean of Abundance podcast and lots of possibilities to engage with when you choose to align with the wisdom of nature. Welcome and thank you for joining us as we continue to explore micro practices that bridges ancient Japanese energy work and cutting-edge somatic science. In our previous podcast episode, we explored a few micro practices as a way to show up for ourselves daily through short, regular, consistent practice. The micro practices we looked at in the last episode, and those we will unfold in this episode, are inspired by a specific practice from the Reiki tradition, Hatsurei-ho. Translated from Japanese, Hatsurei-ho means a method to bring forth, emit, or reveal the spirit. And this resonates deeply for us, as energetic sovereignty is a core concept of all our offerings. So while there are 9 stages in Hatsurei-ho as a complete Reiki meditation, each stage can stand alone as a practice too. In our previous podcast episode, we covered stage 1, Kihon Sishe, or the standard starting posture for quiet centering, as our first micro practice to arrive and relax into the present moment. Stages 2 and 9, Mokyunen, meaning quiet thought, was discussed as a way of incorporating focused attention into our days by silently stating an intention at the start of a task, action, practice, and then again silently stating the completion of said task, action, or practice. This anchors us in the present moment and restores a sense of agency. The third stage, Kinyoku, or dry bathing, was practiced and then discussed as a micro practice that we can also use throughout the day as an energetic reset to clear stagnant energy and disconnect from stress. We then experienced and discussed stage 4 of Hatsurei-ho, the connect to Reiki phase, where we connect our individual energy to universal energy. Put even more simply, we open to receive. The word Reiki breaks down into Rei, universal or spiritual wisdom, and Ki, life force energy, the same as Chi or prana. Now, if you aren't a Reiki practitioner, don't worry. You don't need any special training or attunements to benefit from this. Through our Fern lifestyle approach, where we look through a fascia and trauma-informed, yoga-inspired, Reiki-empowered, and nature-infused lens, these micro-practices become universal tools for everyone and anyone. The micro-practices we will unfold in this episode, stage 5 of Hatsurei-ho, Joshin Kokyu-ho, and stage 7, Saishin Toitsu, Gathering My Spirit. We have covered in a previous podcast, stage 6, which would be Gasho, or 2 hands coming together. And there's also a micro practice available on our website, so we won't be going into that today. Likewise with Gokkai Sansho, which is the Reiki precepts, and we did a whole series on that, and there is a playlist available on our YouTube channel related to that. Taking small, consistent steps makes building a healthy lifestyle easy and lasting. Huge changes often fail as they add more stress and challenge and are simply not sustainable, whereas tiny shifts add up over time to create lasting change. This relates to using neuroplasticity. We are introducing something new, we consistently practice it throughout our day, and then it starts to become more of a habit that we embody. And after enough time, it becomes a trait or automatic response to situations. And with that said, before we continue with part 2 of our Showing Up for Ourselves podcast offering, let's ground theory into experience together now with a micro breath and visualization practice to purify our energy, hydrate our fascia, support our nervous system, and connect to our innate natural intelligence and vitality. Over to you, Sandy.
Thank you, Maya, and thank you, listeners. Let's bring these concepts into our tissues. Wherever you are, unless you're driving, take a moment to drop in with me and Maya for this micro practice. Find a comfortable seat and feel your sit bones pressing evenly into the ground or into the seat. Imagine yourself as a mountain, grounded and unshakable at the base. Let your spine rise gracefully like a tall tree and allow your shoulders to gently drop. If you can, keep your eyes closed, or if you prefer, rest your gaze softly and lightly with your hands in your lap, your palms facing upwards. Allow your fingers to naturally curl and soften. So no tension, no forcing, just an open, receptive stance. Now bring your inner awareness down to your tendon or elixir field, our body's primary energy center, and the physical center of gravity, where we store life force, energy, or ki, located roughly 2 to 3 fingers width below your navel and roughly 2 to 3 fingers width inward towards the center of your body. As you inhale through the nose, visualize pure life force energy like sunlight pouring down through the crown of your head, down your spine, and gathering at your tendon. Feel your belly softly expand like a sponge, soaking up fresh spring water. Pause your breath naturally at the top of your inhalation and feel that energy intensify and build up within you. As you exhale, imagine that gathered energy in your tendon flowing through your abdomen, down your legs, out through your arms, through every pore of your skin, and radiating out into the space around you. Inhale, draw the fresh breath down into your center. Feel your core full with light and vitality. Pause your breath naturally at the top of your inhalation and feel that energy intensify and build up within you. Allow that light to hydrate your fascia, softening as it radiates out past your physical body into infinity. Stay with this rhythm, inhaling, putting life force into your center. Pause. Feel the energy build up within. Then exhale and expand your energy field, feeling light, spacious. Notice how your body feels both deeply anchored to the earth and weightlessly expanded into the room and beyond. Now let's repeat this exact cycle one more time. Inhale through the crown, down to your core. Pause as the light gathers, and exhale it out into infinity. Okay, welcome back, Maya and listeners. Any feedback on that, Maya? Something you want to mention? Something you notice?
Just so lovely and so grounding to be in full presence with yourself.
Yeah, whenever I do this, I'm reminded of the expansion, which is, I think, something that I tend to forget about, right? I love how it can flow through, go into the hara, and then radiates out into our aura field and into the world. That sense of I'm doing this alone, but I'm connected.
Yeah, beautiful interconnection.
Mm-hmm.
We often think of ourselves as flat, and so we think of our breathing as flat too. And here in this embodied experience, we really feel that we are more than 2D, we are 3D. And we forget that we even breathe with our skin, through our skin.
Yeah, I remember from beginning yoga days where it was a new concept for me to think that my heart is not just in the front. My heart is also at the back, right? And this is the same. Of course, the breath is going in and at the back and sideways and into every cell. It's not just specific to the organ of the lung or the heart.
Yeah, I think it's quite a common thing. We don't even notice it, that we think of it like that. We just do. And that's all the more reason why with practice, we then kind of like, oh, my whole body is involved, as you say, and I'm actually breathing into my cells. And I think that's also why the pause and the experiential practice is so helpful and supportive with our own well-being.
As humans, we are very obsessed with the front part of our bodies and lesser so with the back, to the point that we do say, I'm sorry if I'm sitting with my back towards you, which is maybe not a nice thing to do when you're doing it on purpose. However, if we think of energetics, even if you can't see my facial expression, I can send you love through my heart chakra radiating through the back, which is something that we not always thinking about or familiar with because we're so trained for visual clues, right? I was watching something on social media of a woman that was talking to people who are dog owners and said, when your dog sits on your lap and all of a sudden gets off your lap and turns their back towards you, facing something else, they're not abandoning you, ignoring you. They're protecting you. They have put themselves in between you and the potential danger. And so I thought, how smart and how interesting and how highly sophisticated of animals, in this case the dog, and how we are maybe wrongly interpreting sometimes the fact that somebody is shielding us. I mean, we do it when we know there's danger. Somebody shields a child from a car or something. I just thought it was interesting.
That's amazing. And I think that's very much what we talk about here, is that we are nature too. And so the dog in this instance is still very connected to instincts and the intelligence. And as we now know, with the work with the fascia system, we have this innate ability. We do sense. It's our primary way of communicating and relating. As you say, we are energy. So every word, every thought, everything is energy, every emotion. And we understand these things intellectually, but unless we take it into the body, soma, we don't experience it, and then we forget again. We can then struggle with a breath practice, but if you actually realize your whole being, your whole body, all of you is breathing and resonating energy, and you can absolutely send the feeling of love, support across a room. And we feel other people's emotions all the time.
Yeah, and I like how it reminds us that even if we are not physically in the same space, or even if somebody's not visible to us, we're not FaceTiming them. Or now we're getting to like distance Reiki. They might be unaware in this moment of what we're doing, step by step. They can feel our energy. And so it brings me back to how important it is for me as an individual to own my energy, to take care of my energy, to cleanse or purify that energy, because whether I am aware of it or not, whatever energy I'm carrying is radiating, and I have a choice as to what I want to send out into this world, right? And so if I do the practice, because this is about showing up for self, and it enhances my sense of well-being, and it raises my spirit, that can't not pour into those around me, or the things I touch, the project I'm working on, the conversation I'm having. So it's that ripple effect. So we have to show up.
It's the sense of show up, work with your own energy, because that's the gift you have. You have this energetic body, being, vessel. And when we're talking about purifying breath, we're not actually fixing something, and we're not trying to get rid of anything. We're expanding. Expansion is so key here with this style of breath and with fascia, bringing our fern lifestyle approach together. We're not fixing. We're also not trying to get rid of. But we come into practice acknowledging who is here. We often refer to that beautiful Rumi poem, The Guest House. So maybe today, irritability is here. I was listening to somebody earlier on who spoke about we can either be an overwhelm or we can be too rigid. And in the middle lies integration. And that's that expansion we're talking about. So if we acknowledge this is the motion moving through me now, this is the state of my mind now, and then we accommodate it, we kind of tone it down so that it's not too loud. We find that happy medium where we can hold the emotion and expand enough to give it room, but it doesn't have to pump up the volume to be heard. And that makes for better interpersonal communication then as well. But if we're trying to push it away, and I think what I'm pointing to here is that the reason we're encouraging regular micro practices is so that you build up that sort of neuroplasticity of new habits. And over time, then when you find yourself maybe in a scenario where you're overwhelmed, then you remember, oh yes, if I breathe, I can accommodate the overwhelm. And where I am, everything can find a rhythm, and it can be more in tune with my heart song in a manner of speaking, and less jarring.
Yeah, I think the word there that stood out for me is the integration part, right? Maybe in the beginning it feels a little bit mechanical. Dare I say, any new practice feels, oh wait, where's the number 2 on my cheat sheet? And just go with that, because at some time in your practice, you are going to be more fluid. You're also going to find your own rhythm, your own interpretation. It's going to be like your dance with the practice. And that's where we're aiming for, because when you've made it yours like that, it's fully integrated into your cells, just like the breath has gone to each and every cell, but it had to go through the heart and the lungs, right? The oxygen and all of that. It goes to your toes. Now, the same thing happened with practices. The repetition of the practice that starts out a little bit clumsy and rigid becomes like a fluid dance in your life if you do it regularly. And you could change the dance. It doesn't have to be the same waltz every day. Sometimes it's a 2-step. But the point is, when you need it in a crisis, when you're not on your mat, not at home, traveling, you will remember without having to look at the notes what to do.
We're now talking about that neuroplasticity again. You start with a new something, and the new something makes you feel a little bit unsure, maybe even anxious. And then when you start working with them, as you say, that internal dialogue starts up. Am I doing it right? Should I check the sheet? And I distract and interrupt. But by showing up again, then over time, you're more familiar and it evolves the more you show up. And it's also different you showing up with different quality and essence every day. Who is here today? So you allow yourself to be curious. Like you said, you go to the yoga class, you're on the mat, you do it, you feel great, and then you don't integrate it anywhere else. Or you go and experience a Reiki session with somebody, and then that's it. So what we're trying to do here with the encouragement of micro practices is saying, well, let's begin. Choose any one simple micro practice and arrive every day and explore it. And that might mean you arrive consistently at a similar time every day. And then after a while, it becomes your own, and you've checked in and see what happens for you in the practice. I mean, I know for myself, it's lovely to practice when you're in a good mood and you're feeling great. But when you have a day where some other state is present, it's harder. I mean, it's lovely to meet the friendly you, but this is what Fern lifestyle is about. Can I be with the one who's experiencing some inner turmoil, who has just had a stressful experience? Can I still be compassionate to that version of me and show up for her? And that's where the practice comes in. And the more we do that in our safe, contained space, the more we're ultimately able to then translate and integrate it into real life situations. It's not just something that happens when I'm in the yoga class or when I'm with my therapist, whatever it is that makes you feel nice and calm. And it's not to dumb down natural emotions that arrive, but to be expansive enough to notice this emotion is here. How you then, over time, learn to accommodate it changes, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And like you said, it's not maybe the nicest thing to do a practice in the morning, say, for instance, and realize you're grouchy today, or you're sad, or you have an emotion that you would prefer maybe not to have. However, now that we have that knowledge and that awareness, I can know how to take care of myself. Because without the awareness, it's still there, but I'm going to react versus respond, right? When I move into my day. So now I've got a little, oh, wait, heads up. You have a little bit of unresolved sadness. So we give ourselves that little heads up of an awareness that, I'm not as calm as I would have liked to have been. So I need to take a little bit of extra care with myself. Or when something happens in my day, I realize my part in that without the day just unfolding and maybe even dissolving into some catastrophe. I have the awareness, so I can work with that in a compassionate way. Whether I'm aware of it or not, the feeling is still there, or the energy is still there. It's better to have the knowledge, because then I have a choice and a response to how to work with that energy. It's just information. And if I'm informed, I can make a different choice, or I can make an alternative plan.
Yeah, and I think we've raised this before. It's that thing of dualism. We tend to go good, bad, and we do that with emotion and mental state. I'm certainly guilty, even though I work with this all the time. I catch myself that I'll go, I don't like having this emotion. But it is there, and they all have a message. They are information. What is it that they're trying to tell you? Because it's deeper than what's surfacing. And then with a breath practice like this, if I can sit with that, then perhaps the information that my body wants to give me, I can be still enough to hear it.
Yeah, how about this one? So we are still living in a world where we need to get certain things done from a functional point of view. But if I'm aware of my energy and the emotions that are coming up and where I am, how I'm resonating today. So if I'm aware of what's going on, then if I feel that this morning I realized I'm feeling anxious and insecure, this is not the day that I'm going to go into investments, because that energy is not what I need for the highest good of my intention. So it gives us information of living more somatically align with what's going on so that I'm not forcing myself to do a project on a day when my energetics are not aligned with where I'm going to with the project. For instance, when you realize your energy is off, you do the self-care, you don't go and plan a business trip. And then when the energy shifts, you might be able to communicate clearer around your business trip needs. Does that make any sense?
Makes a lot of sense. And it kind of underlines why establishing those daily rituals and rhythms of coming to a practice and practicing them can over time help you feel more expansive. And then there's that day, as you say, where maybe the state you notice isn't matching whatever activities lined up. But because of the familiarity was when I do this, I usually reground, find myself. That information is available to you now as well. And I think that's why it's so important for that consistent, regular practice, because if you only do it when you feel great, then you begin associating it with that. But if it's something you do, regardless of which guest in your internal guest house of emotions wants to shout the loudest today, you show up regardless. And then you're like, oh yeah, if I just breathe here, I can hear the information in a less threatening manner. I can discern whether today is a day where something is genuinely off and I need to change my schedule, or I just need an additional pause here. What are the needs?
Right. Or what are my needs that I can take care of before I interact with others?
Yeah, before I step into the world. And I think now we've gone back to previous podcast episodes where we were saying you're sovereign, your energy is yours and yours alone. You show up for that. And the first thing you do in the day is connect to self before you connect to other. And by regularly showing up, checking in with self, then you become more skilled in navigating your own terrain, in tending to your own landscape, and you'll notice that playing out in the world and in your interactions. It doesn't mean you're never ever going to have something that happens and you react again. No, but I think over time, the more you do it, there's more resilience available to you. You're quicker to recover, or you spot it quicker.
That's why I also like the Hatsurei-ho as a whole practice. For me, it's a reminder that, yes, I'm showing up for myself first, taking care of self, taking care of my energy, noticing what's coming up, purifying, focusing. And then I go into my day, as you say. With that whole process, I'm also lubricating fascia, expanding, energizing. But what I like about this process is that it actually starts with self, which means I don't need externals to get this thing going. I don't need like a team. It starts with me. I take ownership of that. But the ripple effect is spreading out into the world, which means if you're going back to the sovereignty, if I can take care of myself and I find a way to take care of that energy, not only am I doing something really amazing for me, but for every person. Well, and for the universe, really, because it ripples out. So it's a self-practice with universal side benefit. So you're already doing something for self and community, although it's a self-practice. It's a community practice.
I think it's very helpful to say that, because when we talk about your energetic sovereignty here and incorporating micro practices into your day and showing up for yourself, it's a very responsible thing to do, because the more I know what is going on for me, the more I tend to my field. That impacts the greater field that we all inhabit.
I'm giggling here on this side and I have a smile because let's go the other way, lighten it up a little bit. We've all seen the opposite of this. When somebody, think politics, think social media, when somebody does not check their energy and they just burst into a room and then they kind of like splatting all over the place, then they also affect everybody around them, but maybe not in such a great way. We have to manage energy.
But it comes back to if I showed up for my practice and I'm aware of what's going on for me, and I go into the world feeling integrated. I'm not in a state of overwhelm and I'm not in a state of rigidity, that middle place, accommodating all aspects of myself. When I can rest there because I did show up for in my practice. When something discombobulating happens, like a person like that barging into a room, it impacts me less.
What's the next smaller step?
And I'm probably able to then use my integrated state to support that person rather than complaining about that person or reacting to that person. I may well be able to bear witness. Not saying the person's right to behave like that, just being more humanely accepting. Like, I don't like how this person's behaving, but he's a human. Within limits here. So what I'm kind of saying is that, doing the practice, you are showing up for self, and as you rightly said, you are also showing up for everyone in your life, in your community, in the world, because we're all interconnected. And if more of us practice regularly and went into the world with that sense of integration and sense of expandedness, it's easier to interrelate. If someone then shows up who is having a tough time internally and expressing it outwardly, I think the more of us who are in that integrative state, we can help that person without even thinking about helping them, just by holding space and bearing witness.
Absolutely. And I think that's exactly what we need a lot of right now. Imagine that same scenario where that person barges into the room, but the room is all practice in sovereignty and they do these Hatsurei-ho practices. That person will very quickly be held by a different energy that will balance out, and it won't have that domino effect and derail the entire process or day or for whatever reason they're in that group. So yes, once again, the more people are self-regulating, the less we're going to have that kind of thing playing out to the extreme, and what a different society we'll be living in.
I have in my life struggled with anxiety and overwhelm. And with the practices and remembering to ask myself, what here is mine, I have learned to accommodate the angry person in front of me or the annoying person, however I want to look at other, and then remember, oh, but what here is mine. I don't have to sort them out. I need to tap into my energy. And if I tap into what I am sovereign over, I can actually, without trying to fix the other, have a ripple effect that makes life more harmonious for myself and the other. Sometimes somebody might need to rage, and it might be uncomfortable to witness. And perhaps they just need to be heard within reason.
Right. So there is the part of it would be nice for more people can hold space for others in need, not just specialized trained people. But as humans, that's the one part of it. But the other part that I also see there, if I go back to your quote of what about this is mine, if I can make that distinction in the room and I can self-regulate my own nervous system right there and then, that person's behavior or the way they're showing up, their energetics is not going to derail my day. I'm bringing it back to self in a way because I have to abandon something that I was doing because I got so dysregulated. For instance, you were going to do something, but now you're so upset by the presence of others. You're not trying to change them, but now you derail. So your day is now panning out not as planned. So it goes both ways. By doing this practice, once again, it's for self. I can regulate myself in any situation. I don't have to like get off the train and abandon my vacation. Or lives, we learn that we can self-trust. I will start again, even in a small way. It's okay to pause. It's an old outdated way of thinking. I have to go at full speed from the morning till the evening, every day, same speed. Well, if you were a car or an engine, you would probably blow the engine with the revs being too high or continuous. You have to cool the engine off sometimes, and you have to rev it up sometimes. And we've just forgotten that. If somebody is in a crisis, I can hold the space for them. My body, we know intuitively more about what I need in this moment. Then it doesn't really matter so much having to know the future, because we can take care of ourselves no matter what. I'm not saying we like what comes up. I'm just saying we know how to compassionately get ourselves through this moment. The good moment, the difficult moment, the one that's blah. We know how to help ourselves through. And so that will be my invitation. Start small and make it regular, and make that your touchstone for healthy living, for a healthy lifestyle, for continuous growth, mentally, physically, spiritually. And meet us again for the next podcast. Absolutely. Looking forward to it. It was a lovely discussion, and I am excited to continue doing this work with you. Absolutely. Looking forward to it. It was a lovely discussion, and I am excited to continue doing this work with you. Absolutely. Looking forward to it. It was a lovely discussion, and I am excited to continue doing this work with you.
I think it is time for another micro practice. So wherever you are, unless you're driving, let's take a moment to land. Begin by coming to a comfortable upright seat. Sit tall with a long, erect spine. Let your shoulder blades slide softly down your back, opening the space around your heart like a flower opening to the sun. Bring your hands together in Gasho, palms pressed gently against each other at the center of your chest, with the thumbs lightly resting on your sternum. Feel the subtle warmth of two hands touching. Bring your inner awareness down to your tanden, also known as the elixir field, more or less 2 to 3 fingers width below your navel and 2 to 3 fingers width inwards. Take a deep, smooth breath in through your nose. Visualize a brilliant, warm, white light, pure life force energy moving down through your palms, traveling down your arms, passing through your chest, and pooling directly into your tanden. Hold the breath softly at the top of your inhalation for just a moment without straining. Feel the warm white light expanding outward, filling every organ, muscle, and fascial layer of your body with vitality. Release the breath slowly. Visualize the energy traveling back up from your tanden, through your chest and arms, and flowing gracefully back out through your palms. Let's take a second breath together. Draw clean, vibrant white light in through your palms and arms, drawing it deep down into the quiet sanctuary of your tanden. Briefly pause at the top without force. Notice how the soft breath retention creates a gentle, soothing pressure within your abdomen. Exhale smoothly, following the flow of energy from your tanden back out through the body, through the arms, through your palms, and into space. And let's repeat this cycle one more time. Inhale through the hands, up the arms, down the chest, into your core. Pause gently as the light expands before exhaling back up, out through the body, down the arms, and out through the hands. And as we complete this little practice, allow your mind to rest on the heart intention of this practice. My mind is focused, my spirit is gathered. And when you're ready, it's time to come back into the room. How was that for you, Sandy?
So very centering with an expansive feeling.
This micro practice we just experienced together is stage 7 of Hatsurei-ho and called Saishin Toitsu, gathering my spirit. It merges the body, the mind, the breath, and we're following it through focused points of concentration or attention. And that actually helps to soothe, clear that mental clutter alongside developing better energetic sensitivity. Erika Takaze wrote an article about the practice of Saishin Toitsu and mentioned that she found the dictionary definition for the practice, which is concentration, rather unsatisfactory. And she refers to it as a practice that allows her spirit to be gathered and then her mind feels like one. And she goes on to describe how she experiences the practice. Gone are the myriad of distractions, and all that remains is myself, focused and attentive on the here and the now. All is equal and in harmony, and this transcends all. What I found even juicier in the article is that she practices the art of calligraphy, and her quote referring to calligraphy, I felt, could be easily translated into our Fern lifestyle approach. Only when one is centered and focused can one act. The end result is not the point. The end result will happen only by focusing on the process. Only when the mind, Saishin, is one, Toitsu, will the end result flow from the act.
Beautifully said. Wow. Absolutely. Because what came up for me is if you add the focused part to the brain, not that we weren't focusing before, but if you add this different way of focusing, attention and breath, and we amalgamate all of them, then it's for me that whole saying of whatever you pay attention to will grow, right? And so you want them all to harmonize. My energy, my intention, my focus, everything is going in that direction. And this is so beautifully said. That's also the creativity part. We know when we're in flow. That's the technical description of what it feels like when we're completely in flow and one with what we're doing, irrespective of the outcome or the timeline or the zone. We are just there. And it also reminded me of, isn't that something that I longed for when I was in distress, right? I just wanted to feel comfortable in my skin. And you really can't if the body, the mind, the spirit is not all harmonizing together, irrespective of the circumstance. Alone at home, in a crowd, in distress, in a happy space, at a party, at a funeral. How can I stay, I'm not saying happy, how can I feel comfortable in my best with whatever is coming up? And this is what she's described.
I just was so struck by that quote. We push through, we try and make things happen, we try act when we're not ready. I self-criticize myself a lot. I have this expression of I'm not feeling it, and then I can become stuck and unable to execute a very simple task. And reading this, I realized if I actually just paused there, did that micro practice or one of the other ones, and acknowledged how I'm feeling. I mean, it happened today. Then I notice how I'm then able to execute whatever it was afterwards. So it's like, oh, this is making me feel overwhelmed. I'm not sure about this. And then pausing to sit with that. And it's befriending the body, it's befriending the emotions. Why I also chose the traditional Reiki Hatsurei-ho for us to unpack as micro practices was working with the breath has been a challenge for me. I have struggled with my lungs and breathing since a child, and I've overcome that. But then came working with the breath, observing the breath. For many people, it can be a scary thing. And after decades of practicing with clients, I realized it's not just me who has that experience. In fact, my breath would become more strained when I was trying to work with it. And these giant, intense breath practices give such a backlash to my system. And so what I've found with these two in particular, Joshin Kokyo-ho and Seishin Toitsu, we are focusing the breath. We're giving the mind somewhere to travel with it. So we're adding this visualization layer of breath coming into the body, out the body, through the hands. We really are making breathing 3D through our mind, and we are embodying the breath, the spirit. So it was such a beautiful journey, and there's just so many angles here. It's like take the pause, slip in a micro practice. I think that's the punchline at the moment.
Yeah, and I love how you explain the feeling. I just don't feel it right now, but obviously we can't not act. We tend to have a feeling, I want to wait until I feel better and then I'll act. And that's not always the right way to go about things. By pausing, doing a micro practice, you could come to a place where you can go, okay, the whole thing feels too much. What's the next smaller step? Another micro practice. Because that will then unfold new energy, new perspective, new awareness, which I can pause and evaluate and then ask, now, is there another next step? What would that be?
Yeah, it's those micro steps to alter habits, micro practices. And for me, that is how I am befriending self, learning to cultivate a lifestyle that suits me, working with the inner critic on one hand or the inner saboteur. You meet them all. And you go and you pause and you go like, okay, let's stop for a moment. Who is here? Is it the inner critic going jabber, 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 and so just I feel worse? Is it the inner saboteur? Or is there just an emotion? Or am I getting sick? What is actually happening here? And so actually taking the pause before I phone someone, ask for a quote, go and see a client. And some days the response might be, actually need a nap. And if your time allows, great. But if it doesn't, well, then at least do a micro practice just to land a little and see if it's appropriate to continue with your day.
I'm glad you mentioned that because, yes, you might get to a point where it's a physiological thing like, I need a nap, but you can't because you're somewhere where you can't nap right now. The fact that you can't nap doesn't mean you can't reset your energy because you can do breath work. So I like that you mentioned that, right? Because it's energizing. So it wasn't shut eye, it was oxygenation. So, and your mind got quiet and you went in. So we can kind of nap with our eyes open or closed, but standing up if we regulate the breath. It's not going to last you 4 days. You're going to still have to rest your night, but it will carry you through the next hour or three.
I think that's the importance of the micro practices. I see for myself, there's a time in my day where I need a break. And then what do? You distract. But if I actually park and practice, it's far more restorative than the more stimulation. It takes a lot of doing to get to that place where you choose the practice over the distracting habits. call it Netflixing or scrolling or whatever it is you want to do. I'm not saying don't do those things, but I think in today's life, and I'm just speaking from our personal experience, we turn to things when we need something very different. And we put more stimulation in when we actually just needing the overwhelm and the rigidity and the experiences of the day to integrate. And that pause, it's such a beautiful metaphor also, interspersing the day with micro practices for the act of breathing. You don't inhale continuously. There is a practice where you do that to reach a certain altered state, but the normal human being inhales, there's a pause naturally, there's an exhale, we pause. Pausing in between even our breath is natural. So we're just inviting micro practices back into our lives as a natural way of being and well-being.
Absolutely. It goes against the grain where we sometimes think that I have to do big or faster to get further. Back in the day when I tried to run distances, long distance, my natural tendency was two things. Widen the gate, bigger steps, I'll get there quicker. And that doesn't work because you're going to put your spine out of alignment in your hips and you're going to overstretch. If you're going to go faster, you've got to take smaller steps and be more disciplined about it. So it's more of a mental thing. In fact, people now do distance running and then they run for a certain period of time and walk continuously. So that's when the mind and the body be working together. But they'll get there quicker if they can do the micro practices over a long period of time. So that's the one part. And then the other part is the fear we have as humans that if I don't keep on pushing, and I stop to pause, I'm never going to start again. Training ourselves with the Hatsurei-ho meditation method and using the micro practices and integrating it into our lives, we learn that we can self-trust. I will start again, even in a small way. It's okay to pause. It's an old, outdated way of thinking. I have to go at full speed from the morning till the evening, every day, same speed. You will, if you were a car or an engine, you would probably blow the engine. You have to cool the engine off sometimes, and you have to rev it up sometimes.
What came to mind, we are self-organizing and self-regulating beings. We have forgotten that. And the micro practices are helping us come back to our natural state of being, our natural intelligence, true nature.
I don't know for you, but for me, I definitely find that I can experience more joy in the process. And that is also a new learning in the modern day because we're so outcome orientated, right? But then the joy can go away. That's not really where it's at. Living is in every micro moment, not just big excitement in the beginning and then joy when I celebrate at the end. I think there's something to be said for finding joy in the moment so that I can keep on living.
We think that by packing more in, we're achieving more. We can put ourselves into freeze mode by pushing too hard and then not doing it at all or overdoing it. It's that middle path. And I think we're uncomfortable with the pause. I think in today's society, we don't know what to do with the stillness, the silence. And we need it. Not only when you sleep, we need those moments of pause in the day to find ourselves again. Where is my body? Where is my energy? How am I doing? Anything more we want to say before we call it a day? I would like to say that we will record the full Hatsurei-ho meditation and make it available via our website. This was more to encourage people to start small with any of the micro practices already on our website or mentioned in this podcast or the previous one. Take one. It could literally be two hands coming together and just sit with it for a minute every day for a few days. Explore the practices and befriend yourself. Start remembering that you are this amazing being. You're self-assembling, self-organizing, self-regulating, self-generating, self-correcting with micro-practicing. Remember who we are, and the more of us who do it, the healthier our whole well-being as a society and a community and a world can be.
These micro practices that eventually starts a whole new way of being. I feel that if we have something that is constant, that can be a metronome for us, and we stay connected to our soul longings, our spirit, our body, we know intuitively more about what I need in this moment, then it doesn't really matter so much having to know the future, because we can take care of ourselves no matter what. I'm not saying we like what comes up. I'm just saying we know how to compassionately get ourselves through this moment. The good moment, the difficult moment, the one that's blah. We know how to help ourselves through. And so that will be my invitation. Start small and make it regular, and make that your touchstone for healthy living, for a healthy lifestyle, for continuous growth, mentally, physically, spiritually. And meet us again for the next podcast.
Please drop us a line if you have any questions. Reach out. Oh, lovely to have you with me again today, Sandy, and look forward to our next episode.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. It was a lovely discussion, and I am excited to continue doing this work with you.